Can I keep my job and
Yeah.
still own a franchise? We probably hear this 3 or 4 times a week. What a great question. What's the answer, Ray?
The answer is you can. That's a model. You can. And there's a few other questions like, do you want something that you're going to transition over? Do you want something that you just are building income streams and you're diversifying and building, so we'd have a few other questions, but the answer is yes. Now, you need to then figure out how much time you have. You need to figure out what your skills and aptitudes are. Are you a good manager? Can you delegate? These are kind of questions we dig into. You would need to find a business that would work well in that model in your area. The financial, we don't want you betting the ranch, right? So you got to find the right investment level as well. So the answer is yes, it certainly can, but you need to dig in. There are businesses that take very little time with the right manager. And again, the right manager is important, the right person to manage the day-to-day part of the business. The other aspect, there's some that take a lot more time. I've had people who've gotten businesses and they're adding 20, 25 hours a week for the first year or two. But that was a decision to be made, and they made that decision. And then as time goes on, they've gone lower. On the flip side, you have people who spend very little time, but you got to find the right business. You got to find the right people, and you have to be honest with yourself about who you are, what you are bringing to the table, not just what the franchise is bringing to the table.
Yeah, and the underlying fear around that is I don't want to work 100 hours a week as a business owner, right? Uncle Randy and Aunt Sally opened a pizza shop many years ago, and they were always there, right? They were there 19 hours a day, 6.5 days a week. I don't want to work 100 hours.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's how you turn that perception into knowledge. It's through the validation portion of the informed decision process. Validation is when you're talking to the franchise company, we teach you how to get on the phone with the franchisees, the owners around the country, in Austin, in Kansas City, in Seattle, in Fort Lauderdale. And you talk to them about their life, and you talk to them about the franchisor and how the franchisor supports them. And you talk to them about what their customers are like. We teach you how to get on the phone and make these calls. And many of the franchise companies will host live calls where you can join in with a single franchisee on there. They'll record these calls and send them to you. We encourage you to do all of that, but mostly we encourage you to get on the phone one-on-one with a person running the business you're interested in and ask them all your questions, right? And someone did that for them when they were investigating. And so people freely do this. They give back, they pay it forward because someone helped them in the process. And it's just a beautiful thing when that happens.
It's incredibly important. And you'll run across with all these different franchise businesses out there. There are some that aren't as forthcoming or open with their franchisees to have them communicate with you. That's a factor, and you need to deal with that. And have I ever worked with somebody who eliminated a business because they couldn't talk one-on-one with the franchisee? Yep. It's happened, and that's fine. And I've had people who were able to kind of work their way around it. You need to be able to talk to people to make an informed decision, right? It's a trust and verify process. I trust what I'm hearing and I verify it. And then, averages are great, Terry. But the other thing you need to do is to break down and say, okay, unless you're completely average, you need to figure out what people like you with your skill sets, how they would do. And you got to be honest with yourself. If you're average, you need to look at that. My people, I'll brag about them. My people tend to be very strong, right? They're way above average. They're the kind of top 10% type folks. And that's great. But you really need to dig and find people like you. Because if people like you are below average in a system, then looking at the average information, not just numbers, but time spent and everything else, you want to make sure, like, if you're below average, then probably not the system for you. If you're above average, or if you're like the better people in a system, I want to see how much time they're spending. I want to see what good looks like. I want to know what kind of return they're getting. And in my experience, you don't really get that as much on a group call. That needs to be something that asks for a little time. And my experience in my almost 30 years doing this is that when you talk to another business owner, a franchisee of a system, and they get to know you for a couple minutes, they'll spend the time with you. You know, you're very appreciative of it, but they'll invest the time with you. And quite honestly, I think it's good for them because they only want good people in their system. So they want people who are going to be really good. So they want to take the time because if you come in the system and do very well, that helps the system.
Exactly. What can you ask on a validation call? Anything, right? Anything you want, as long as you develop rapport, and let them know you're a qualified candidate, you've been through the franchisor's education, you'll be surprised where these calls go. And then if you join that system, you'll be stunned where the relationships go, right? The friendships that you build,
The mentors,
the weddings and the college graduations and the high school events that you attend with other franchisees across the country. It's your secondary support system, and it's unlike any other support system out there.
Hey, Terry, let's give people a secret. Okay, here's a secret you get. You're an insider and you're on this call. A secret I have with my folks when they're doing their investigation and they're going through the process, the informed decision process, and they're talking to franchisees, is we always talk about who you're talking to. I don't need to know, but they need to know. And they keep a track, a list of these folks. And these people become their mentors, their coaches. You know, Bill in Austin, Texas was the best at marketing. So when I have marketing questions, yes, you have the corporate support. I know Bill. Bill can help me, right? I can talk to Bill. Lisa was terrific on keeping the labor costs down. I need to talk to Lisa. What are her best practices? How does she implement the proven system to be the best at that? You have your own best practices sheet from your investigation. There's my insider secret. It's your golden nugget for the day, everybody.